buonasera comandante.
Senta, io sono De Falco da Livorno, parlo col comandante?
Sì, buonasera comandante Falco, sono Schettino.
Mi dica il suo nome, per favore.
Sono il comandante Schettino, comandante.
Schettino?
Sì.
Ascolti Schettino, ci sono persone intrappolate a bordo, adesso lei va con la sua scialuppa sotto la prua della nave, lato dritto, c'è una biscaggina. Lei sale su quella biscaggina e va a bordo della nave. Va a bordo della nave e mi viene a dire, mi riporta quante persone ci sono. È chiaro? Io sto registrando questa comunicazione, comandante Schettino.
Allora, comandante, le dico una cosa.
Parli a voce alta.
Allora, la nave adesso, io sono qua di fronte...
Comandante, parli a voce...
In questo momento, la nave è inclinata...
Ho capito. C'è gente, ascolti, c'è gente che sta scendendo dalla biscaggina di prua. Lei quella biscaggina la percorre in senso inverso, sale sulla nave e mi dice quante persone e che cosa hanno a bordo, chiaro? Mi dice se ci sono bambini, donne o persone bisognose di assistenza e me ne dice il numero di ciascuna di queste categorie. È chiaro? Guardi Schettino che lei si è salvato forse dal mare, ma io la porto veramente molto male, faccio passare l'anima dei guai. Vado a bordo, cazzo!
Comandante, per cortesia.
Che sta facendo, comandante?
Sto qua per coordinare i soccorsi...
Che sta coordinando lì? Vado a bordo, mi coordini i soccorsi da bordo. Lei si rifiuta?
No, non mi sto rifiutando.
Lei si sta rifiutando di andare a bordo, comandante?
No, sto andando.
E mi dica qual è il motivo per cui non ci va.
Sto andando perché ci sta l'altra lancia che si è fermata.
Lei vada a bordo, è un ordine.
Però, ma si rende conto che è buio e che qua non vediamo nulla?
E che vuole tornare a casa, Schettino? È buio, vuole tornare a casa? Salga sulla prua della nave tramite la biscaggina e mi dica ora.
Let me tell you about a kind of faith that modern people still blindly cling to, the belief that technology, money, and rows of insurance numbers can turn every trip into an immortal paradise. But every paradise has its limits, and sometimes, all it takes is a single misplaced command for everything to collapse like a sandcastle in a stormy night. The story I'm telling you begins on a day that seemed impossibly ordinary, Friday, January 13, 2012. If you're the superstitious type, that date might send a chill down your spine. But for the thousands aboard the Costa Concordia that night, Friday was simply the start of 7 days drifting across the deep blue Mediterranean. Costa Concordia, once a source of pride for Italy, for the entire European tourism industry. A ship nearly 300 meters long, more than 35 meters wide, weighing 114,000 tons, numbers impressive enough to leave anyone speechless. But what really caught my attention wasn't the numbers. It was the sense of power carried by everyone stepping onto that deck. They truly believed they were entering a floating city, a symbol of civilization, comfort, and absolute safety in the wild sea. What did that city have to offer? Everything you could imagine: 1,500 cabins, 5 restaurants, 4 pools, 5 spas, a casino, a nightclub, even a grand theater, everything a middle-class person could ever dream of for a luxury vacation. Want to look out at the ocean from your own balcony? Over 500 rooms with sea views waited for you. Fancy trying your luck under the neon lights? The casino stayed open all night, like a floating Las Vegas. But it was exactly that feeling of invincibility, that illusion of absolute safety, that sowed the seeds of disaster. The ship was designed with modern watertight compartments. They said it could survive any accident, as long as no one made a serious mistake. Now I ask you, is there anything in this world that's truly absolute? Beneath the dazzling surface, Concordia was still a product of humans, and humans always have limits, always have moments of carelessness. I remember that day, Concordia left the port of Civitavecchia as dusk fell, carrying over 4,200 people, about 3,200 passengers and 1,000 crew. Their destination, a circuit around the western Mediterranean, stopping at 6 ports, then returning to the starting point after 7 days. The captain that night was Francesco Schettino, a true Italian, once praised as a model in the maritime world. Schettino appeared on stage, polite and full of pride, welcoming all passengers with words of confidence. I still remember his voice over the loudspeakers: "We will give you an unforgettable journey." He kept his promise, just not in the way anyone wanted. No one could have guessed that the unforgettable he meant would wreak so much of death. That night, if you'd stood on the deck, you'd remember the golden lights running the length of the ship, music drifting from the restaurants, the sound of clinking glasses, lovers laughing as they gazed out towards the dim outline of Giglio Island. And then, almost as if fate had it planned, amidst all that glitter, a decision was made. The Costa Concordia would sail close to Giglio Island, performing a salute to the island, a traditional gesture beloved by Italian captains, meant to show off the ship, please the islanders, and maybe curry favor with a few special guests on board that night. Ever heard the phrase, showing off in front of the masters? That's exactly how I felt reading the last-minute change in course, not passing through the deep waters as usual, but steering close to the shore, where countless hidden rocks waited just below the surface. A modern ship, with electronic maps, the latest radar, why take such a risk? Who actually gave the order? Was it really just for a tradition, or was there another reason? Years later, even after the investigation closed, people still argue about the real motives. But that night, nobody could have predicted how quickly disaster would strike. Just minutes after changing course, the Concordia drifted silently toward the shore of Giglio Island, its port side nearly parallel with the jagged rocks below. Some decisions, even if they're off by just a hair, end up costing hundreds of lives. Let me tell you next, what really happened after that fateful collision. Have you ever believed that just a tiny change on a nautical chart could drag thousands of people to the very edge of disaster? That night, the Costa Concordia didn't just alter its route, it redrew the fate of every passenger on board. No one knew it then, but I want you to remember, most disasters begin with details people tend to overlook. While the restaurant lights were still blazing and glasses were clinking together, no one paid attention to the numbers on the radar screens. The order to change course was carried out with nothing more than a nod, just to satisfy a harmless old tradition. Everyone thought it was simply a salute to the island, but in reality, that was the moment the death knell began to sound. At 9:45 p.m., a strange noise exploded through the ship. The hull had struck a hidden reef, ripping open its steel skin. Can you imagine it? A floating city, out at sea in the dead of night, suddenly plunged into darkness. The entire power system failed, and the shadows spread like a curse. Only the emergency lights still flickered, just enough to reveal panic on every face. Put yourself in that moment. 1 second you're dining in luxury, the next you're the main character in fate's cruel joke. People screamed out for loved ones. Others desperately searched for life jackets. Every belief in safety was thrown overboard in seconds. But don't think everyone acted on survival instinct. Many still clung to hope, trusting the soothing voice over the loudspeaker, everything is under control. That was the grand illusion, and I want you to remember, never entrust your life to any announcement once things have spiraled beyond control. Down in the engine room, the technicians knew better than anyone, there was no way to stop the incoming water. 3 watertight compartments had been breached, and all the pumps and generators were utterly useless. The ship gradually became a drifting mass of steel, surging helplessly toward the shore like a drunk who's lost all control. Now think about this, why, for more than 20 minutes, did the management keep passengers in their rooms and delay sending out a distress signal? Was the company's reputation really worth more than human lives? How many chances for survival were stolen by that delay? The answer lies in every precious minute that slipped away, and I want you to remember this truth, because later, it's exactly why the consequences became irreversible. By the time the order to abandon ship was finally given, all sense of order had collapsed. Lifeboats could only be launched from the side of the ship that hadn't tilted too far. On deck, it was every person for themselves, those who moved fast survived, those who didn't got trapped between icy water in pitch-black corridors. What would you do? Risk jumping into the sea, or cling to some faint hope for a miracle? And one more thing, don't forget, in the critical moment, the person who was supposed to be in ultimate command, the captain, had vanished from the scene. No one saw him. No one received a single useful command. The Coast Guard had to radio him again and again, ordering him back to the ship. But he'd already chosen his own way out. I'm not asking you to judge just yet, but remember this, every major disaster always begins with a chain of small decisions, and the price paid is always higher than anyone ever imagines. Not everyone can truly grasp it. Chaos isn't just the sound of people screaming, lifeboats packed to the brim, or seawater flooding the corridors. When order collapses, each individual is forced to find their own way to survive. Think about it. In those first minutes after the collision, most people still clung to official announcements and hoped the person in charge would step up and rescue them. But the longer they waited, the deeper everyone sank into the trap of delay and cover-up. Real control was no longer in the hands of anyone trustworthy. Below deck, the engineers faced something completely beyond their power. The water pumps were dead, the electricity cut out section by section, and all command signals fell into silence. On the decks, each time a lifeboat was lowered, a flicker of hope would appear, only to be crushed by chaos tearing apart all order. The young and strong found their own way out, the elderly, the children, the vulnerable could only gamble their fate on the hands of strangers beside them. This should have been the moment when the captain appeared at the hottest spot, took command, inspired action, and made decisive choices. But Scatino had left his post, leaving behind the ship and thousands of lives still hanging in the balance. Instead of firm orders, all that was left was a string of broken instructions from subordinates. Everyone did what they could for themselves, and anyone who couldn't hold on was swept away by the cold, rising water. The safety corridors became slippery slopes, and as the tilt grew worse, hope was forced toward the back of the ship, where many could do nothing but wait for a miracle. Have you ever wondered how such a massive cruise ship marketed as absolutely safe, with automated, monthly drilled rescue systems, could fall apart in mere minutes? From the very start, every promise was just a shell covering a chain of personal mistakes. No procedure is ever tight enough without initiative and responsibility from those at the top. When panic spread, all official instructions instantly lost their effect. The crowd split up, every group for themselves. Whoever moved first had a better chance, and the weak were the easiest to leave behind. In the midst of all this, the Italian Coast Guard arrived. They didn't find the captain in the command center, only received vague signals over the radio. Cold, firm orders went out: Scatino, get back on board. There are still hundreds of people waiting to be rescued. But on the other end came only excuses: I fell, I can't get back, all attempts to shrug off the responsibility that should have been his alone. That absence infuriated viewers worldwide and left an indelible stain on the maritime industry. Americans have a tradition: the captain is the last to leave the ship. But on the Concordia, that was just words on paper. On board, as dawn broke, rescuers still had to use every method they could: ropes, ladders, small boats, to pull each trapped person to safety. Some people risked jumping into the sea, freezing to the bone, waves tossing them about, relying only on the faint lights from the island. Many couldn't hold on, perishing because they were a few minutes too late, or simply because there was no one there to guide them at the crucial moment. And then, when it came time to count the survivors, no one could help but shudder at the cold, hard numbers. 32 people never made it home. Behind them were shattered families, plans that would never be fulfilled. All because of a string of delays, a web of cover-ups, and personal decisions no one dared to own. Now ask yourself, was this truly an unforeseeable accident, or the inevitable outcome of a lax management system, a culture of shifting blame and indifference among the masses? If you choose to believe in luck, beware. Blind faith in so-called automatic safety will lead you straight into a trap, not just on the Concordia, but in every choice you make in life. And that is the rawest truth that the Costa Concordia disaster left for the world: the fact that all chaos begins with human complacency, and when the mask finally falls, no one wants to take responsibility, not even with a belated apology. After the night the ship sank, all eyes turned to those bearing the highest responsibility. Italians are not quick to forgive, and international opinion was even harsher. The investigation began, but what came to light was even more raw and humiliating than the tragedy at sea. The Concordia's voyage data system and black box exposed the entire truth. The original route had been altered at the captain's discretion, without any official consultation with the command board. The island salute, a tradition twisted into a showy display to please certain individuals or interest groups, became a death sentence for thousands on board. Hard evidence showed that on that fateful night, it was Scatino himself who directly gave the order to change course, ignoring every technical warning. No one dared stop him, no one reported up the chain, because in that old-school power culture, the commander is always right, and subordinates exist only to obey. The reef map was on the system, but the self-satisfaction and ego of a few were enough to sink any remaining safety protocol. In court, a series of staff and officers testified, some pinned all the blame on Schettino, others argued they acted under pressure from the company management, maintain the image, avoid early alarm, prioritize brand protection over actual lives. Notably, none of them dared to break the silence on their own initiative, not even when water was already flooding the compartments. The investigation made it clear, after the collision, delaying the distress signal robbed everyone of the golden time to save lives. An entire management system built on paperwork, training, and endless simulations collapsed in the end because of the complacency of a handful of those at the top. Every protocol, every rescue drill became useless when the final decision came too late. The captain's Moldovan lover, whose presence on the ship was a surprise, only deepened the web of suspicion, suggesting that many of the life and death decisions that night were driven by personal feelings and motives. Her appearance in the command cabin at the exact moment the ship changed course was proof of negligence and the breakdown of discipline at the highest level. Independent maritime experts, in reports submitted to the court, unanimously agreed, the Costa Concordia disaster was the result of a series of well-worn mistakes that no one dared correct. Technical checks were bypassed by verbal orders, safety standards ignored out of carelessness, and the attitude of, just this once won't matter. The organizational culture of the leader is untouchable left every employee passive and silent in the face of wrong decisions. When the verdict came, Schettino received a 16-year prison sentence, but everyone knew that was just the tip of the iceberg. Many company executives escaped through legal loopholes or received only administrative penalties, while those who truly suffered were the families who lost loved ones, and the survivors who would carry their scars forever. By now, the public was no longer asking, could this accident have been prevented? They bitterly wondered, how could so many warnings, so much technology, be defeated by one person's recklessness? Behind every disaster, it's not fate, but personal choices and the silent complicity of the collective. This is the hard lesson Concordia left for the world. And then, when the media storm subsided, the wreck of the Concordia still lay there for 2 years off Giglio Island, as a relentless reminder. No matter how modern a system is, it can always turn into a deadly trap if the people inside it lack courage, lack integrity, and don't dare speak the truth at the most crucial moment. Costa Concordia lay on its side off the coast of Giglio for over 2 years, not just a gigantic shipwreck, but an open wound forcing all of Italian society to confront itself in the mirror. The night of the disaster passed, but its echoes haunted long after, not just in the headlines, but in everyday conversations, in the restless sleep of survivors, in every meal missing a loved one. In Italy, no one could forget the image of the broken hull, white paint smeared, shattered windows, jagged steel. Every morning, the people of Giglio would see that shame looming on the water, reminding them of the helplessness of an entire system once praised as modern and reliable. Cruise lines across Europe were forced to review their training protocols, increase surprise inspections, but the truth is, no one could guarantee that a Concordia-style accident wouldn't happen again, somewhere, on another day. The victims each carried their own scars. Some lost a wife, some would never find their child's body, some would forever live with memories of the last dinner before everything shattered. They filed lawsuits, demanded compensation, argued with insurance companies, waiting for every penny to pay for what no amount of money could replace. Public outrage surged, the media devoured every small scandal, a cowardly captain, executives dodging blame, the parent company doing everything to avoid compensation. The pain didn't end with each family. The Italian tourism industry suffered heavy losses, countless contracts cancelled, cruise routes subjected to strict inspections. Every Giglio Island resident lived for 2 years under a cloud of anxiety, oil-stained seas, a sharp drop in tourists, daily life turned upside down. When the ship was finally salvaged, the whole island seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, but no one could forget those years trapped between fear and the shame that seemed to hang over the nation. People raced to analyze the causes, blame individuals, propose new laws, organize international conferences. But like every disaster, the warning bells only rang for a few years before being swallowed by the whirlpool of time, by new scandals, new shipwrecks somewhere else in the world. The blood and tears lessons that seemed destined to change an entire industry were gradually eroded by old habits, blind confidence, and a culture where everyone thinks, this time, it won't happen to me. Many who survived the Concordia could never set foot on a ship again. Some took their own lives, haunted by memories, some became speakers, retelling their story as a warning to others. Some only wanted to forget, but every night woke up from nightmares, the sound of rushing water, screams, steel grinding and snapping, and the echo of the PA system. Don't worry, everything is under control. Eventually, the Costa Concordia was salvaged, cut apart, and sold for scrap. But its memory, the freezing Mediterranean night, those fateful moments of hesitation, the arrogance, the cover-ups, the collective cowardice, will last far longer than any piece of steel that once lay in that wreck. Do you think society learned anything from this? They'll talk about discipline, technology, raising awareness. But when all the noise dies down, most will once again trust in luck, sit quietly on their giant ships, and silently hand their fate over to pretty reports, flowery promises, and a system where, when it matters most, everyone simply bows their head and walks away as if they were never there. When all the sounds have faded and even the giant wreck is gone, the story of Costa Concordia remains in the collective memory, a scar no one wants to touch, yet one that can never be erased. It's not just a lesson for the maritime industry, but a mirror for anyone who's ever thought that disaster only happens to someone else. We always put our faith in technology, procedures, manuals, and promises of safety. But behind all of that are still people, with their complacency, selfish calculations, moments of weakness, and choices that, if made wrong even once, can never be undone. Perhaps the scariest thing in this world isn't the sea, or the hidden waves, but the silence of those who have the power to speak up. It's every minute of hesitation, every habit of shifting blame, every false belief that the system will somehow take care of us. As long as we keep living like that, any society is just a step away from another tragedy, only with a different face, on a different day. Remember, any one of us could end up as a character in a story like Concordia. The only difference is the role we play, the one who survives by luck, or the one who contributes to disaster just by lacking a little responsibility. If you find meaning in this story, leave a comment below, share your thoughts on what happened, or on things you've witnessed in real life. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next video, because truths like this need to be repeated, until no one dares to repeat the same mistakes again. Thank you for staying with me until the end of the story. I hope that after watching, you'll never again take any warning sign lightly, whether at sea, on land, or in your own life.